Hey Brick fans, welcome to Brick Bakery, where all our jokes are half baked. I'm Jacob, it's Space Month, and I'm presenting a Space MOC. All space missions needs a little mission control, which is why I built this mission control center for the Bakersville Space Agency. The Bakersville Space Agency Mission Control Center is where everything is done to back up every space mission that takes place in Bakersville. This mission control MOC is inspired heavily by the Apollo program mission control at NASA. This particular control center is a bit smaller than the original. The original Apollo mission control center had around 20 consoles, and this one only has 7. Each console carries out a very important task in relation to the ongoing mission. If you want the full info on the Apollo Program Mission Control Center, I can recommend the article on Ars Technica, Apollo Flight Controller 101, Every Console Explained. You should be able to find it on Google. But let's go through this Mission Control Center step by step. At the front end of the Mission Control Center, there is these 3 large screens which can be used to display the information which is on each of the consoles in the room, or can be used to display televised pictures if needed. The original Apollo Mission Control had 5 of these screens, but this one only has 3. Above the large screens, there is a couple of smaller screens that can be used for the same purpose as the big ones. The original screens were rear projected, but these particular ones are digital, and you'll see some pictures that I've picked from the boxes of the newer LEGO space exploration sets. This effect is achieved very easily by cutting out some pictures from some paper that I printed out and just squeezing them in between the brick and the transparent panel. At the bottom of the screens, you'll see some dials that display some of the key information that is very valuable during a space mission. At the back of the room, there is a fire safety wall that includes a lot of different tools for fire extinguishing and from prying out different burning parts from the consoles. With all the wires that runs through this building, there's got to be some kind of fire hazard, which is why this fire equipment is right here. But the main feature of this build is undoubtedly the 7 consoles that helps the engineers in the Mission Control Center to interpret and monitor all the data. Each console has a set assignment, and I'll go through each one right now. The first row nearest the screens are what is commonly referred to as the trench. The first console on the left is called Booster. This is where the booster system engineer is sitting, and he has a very important role at launch and maneuvers. He monitors all the rockets on the spacecraft. The main task of this console is to put the moon vehicle on its trajectory to the moon. When that's been done, this console is manned by mission-specific personnel. This second console on the right is called FIDO, the FDO. This is where the Flight Dynamics Officer sits. This guy monitors the vehicle's trajectory throughout the mission, because deviations from the planned trajectory can spell catastrophic problems. So this guy's mission is very important. And here we got Capcom, which is Capsule Communicator. This is the only flight controller who is allowed to talk directly to the crew. This spot is almost always occupied by an astronaut, so the crew aboard the spaceship knows who they are talking to and know him well. Also, this guy sees to that the crew understands everything that is being communicated to them. To the right of Capcom we have the surgeon. Now this is the life systems officer or flight surgeon. He monitors the health of the astronaut, and this spot is always occupied by a medical doctor. Back on the left we have this guy. This is flight or the flight director. This guy has the ultimate authority to do anything necessary to ensure the safety of the crew and the mission success. The only way that the space agency can overrule this guy's decision is to fire him. You know, this is the guy that Ed Harris played in Apollo 13, aka Gene Kranz. In this particular case, it is of course the most upstanding and responsible citizen of Bakersville. Next to flight we have INCO, Instrumentation and Communications Officer. This guy monitors the communication systems from both the command module and the lunar module, so he serves a very important role as well. And all the way in the back sits the Director of Flight Operations, or the DFO. He is the interface between the mission control and the Space Center management. In the real world, this was often manned by Chris Kraft during the Apollo project. And there is of course 3 timepieces on the FDO's console, so we know what time it is around the world. There has not been an extensive use of advanced techniques in this mock, but there is one little thing I would like to highlight. Instead of using a 2x2 plate for these seats, I've used a jumper plate, a 2x2 jumper plate, so you can actually offset the seats just a bit, which gives it a nice asymmetric look, which makes it look a little more realistic, I think. As I mentioned in the beginning, I did take some liberties with this one. This control room should be much larger if it was to be the right scale for minifigures in comparison to the real thing. However, I just wanted to capture some of the essence of this, and I think that really succeeded. Of course, the consoles in the real Apollo program Mission Control Center was a light green that corresponds much more to the sand green LEGO color, but I thought this green color would actually do pretty well. And I've got to admit that I do like this green color, so using it once in a while is something I really like. The fire equipment stored on the right of the mock is something that I just came up with, both because I thought it needed a little detail, but also because I thought it was kind of realistic. In fact, I'm not sure how much fire extinguishing equipment would have been in this room, but I do imagine that there would have been some. As you can see, I also included a lot of details in the shape of soda cans, hot dogs and pieces of pizza. I'm actually not sure if the guys were allowed to have this in there, but I just think it adds a little extra to this mock. The food sort of underlines the strenuous work that these guys are doing. These guys could be there for days on end if something was a problem. And you'll see that very clearly in the Apollo 13 movie, which I, by the way, can only recommend. I think a mission control mock like this is important to have for your space agency, because it seems that the LEGO space exploration sets are often centered around the launch, the heavy vehicles, the rockets, the space shuttles, all that, but very rarely around the technical aspects of mission control. I think having a mission control mock really finishes off the space exploration theme in a wonderful way. And speaking of the new space exploration theme, you should know that GJ Bricks has a review of one of the biggest set in that theme. You should go over there and check it out. And you should also know that GJ Bricks is part of the BTN network, and you can check out all the members of that network in the description below. So this was my little mission control mock, which I liked building a lot. I really liked trying to approach the real thing as best I could. I know this is not accurate as such, but I liked trying to do something that was almost accurate. An accurate one would be a lot bigger, and I'm actually not sure if someone has already done that. I'll have to check out YouTube and the internet maybe. But that's all for me today. I hope you'll comment, like, and subscribe, and I hope I'll see you guys next Monday.